Redditors who went to jail/prison, what went through your head on the first day? My first night in county jail was surreal, to say the least. My summer of drugs and drinking had culminated into stupid crimes, and there I was. My mom wasn't going to pay bail. I had to learn my lesson. That lesson turned out to be 8 years in a maximum security prison. County jail. I slept with my shoes on the first night, thinking I was going home any day. I viewed myself as a kid, even though I was 21, that somehow it wasn't really happening. Everything was routine. Breakfast, TV, exercise, TV, cards, TV, cards, TV, cards. 6 months later they wanted to make an example out of me. 8 years in state prison, in NY. You do 80% of your time, so it ended up being 6 years 10 months. That first night in state prison, completely different ball game. First, leaving county jail you're in shackles. Legs shackled to the guy next to you, so if you try to run you better hope both of you are really good at convict three-legged racing. The bus brought us under the prison, hundreds on inmates, into what I would call a factory of processing humans for incarceration. Searched, stripped, cavity searched, shaved, showered, deliced, waiting, clothed, waiting. All while hearing the noise of a couple thousand inmates above you, not knowing what kind of madhouse you're stepping into. Not much choice at that point. The most important thing I realized is, just accept it. You're there. Time will move faster if you get a solid routine and just follow direction. They can't stop your time, but through can slow it up. I've been out longer than I've been in now, and have my life back on track. I was definitely going to be dead from something stupid, so I was rescued rather than arrested. Don't go to jail, kids. Being separated from everything was the worst. I got put in maximum for felony assault, up to 8 years, after this dude tried to force my girlfriend, now wife, into a bathroom with him at a bar. I only threw one punch, but he wound up falling through a plate window and slicing arteries. After 2 days in holding with people coming down off of all the drugs, meth/heroin, etc., and the transfers trying to start fights with everyone, I got sent to 23-hour lockdown in a pod, which is reserved for violent offenders. One skinhead dude was in on 23 counts of various forms of homicide/manslaughter, so dump got real fast. Cell got tossed at one point and they questioned me. I didn't say dump, which in hindsight was smart, since when my cellmate got back he asked a guy across the way if I said anything. Then he introduced himself to me. After that we were cool, and he vouched for me saying I was in there for some real dump. God knows how long it was before this happened. Hours tick by like days. Time stands still. My cellmate had been in for 2 of his 6 years with repeated trafficking, felony firearm, battery on an officer. Well, got back from a hearing super excited saying, well, if I plead to this or that I should be able to get out in a month. He was dead serious, but inside my head I knew there was no way. Something about his conviction, while staring me dead in the eyes, made me realize that there is absolutely nothing else going on in his head but trying to get out. That night while brushing my teeth, I remember staring at myself in the mirror thinking, I truly believe I'm getting out tomorrow too. That was the most eye-openingly present yet emotionally detached pit of realization I have ever fallen into. I was lucky though. My charges got dropped on self-defense after bar surveillance showed him touching me first, so duck that. I make sure to avoid situations that might put me in that situation. I don't have dump to prove to anyone. It used to be duck cops. Now it's duck jail. I'm never going back. After leaving the 4-week intake prison, I found myself following a 10-hour bus ride, shackled in a school bus without windows, in a maximum security prison with a towel, 2 pairs of boxers, 2 pairs of jeans, 2 shirts, a toothbrush, and a bar of soap. I hadn't showered in 2 days, and not smelling like shit is important in prison, so I made my way to the herd shower and got in. Now, I wasn't scared, necessarily, but I also wasn't super enthusiastic to be showering with a bunch of dudes, of course. I turned on my spigot and starting soaping up and dropped my precious bar of soap onto the ground. The shower was silent as I turned around and stared at my soap slipping away on the floor. All eyes were on me. I had to choose quickly, so I did what came naturally. I started laughing out loud. I just roared with laughter. After a few seconds, everyone in the shower started laughing with me. In that moment, we all shared in the absurdity of our situation and enjoyed a good prison shower rape joke laugh. It also really helped quell my biggest fear about prison, actually, which was that I was going to be raped. I was a youngish white man who didn't know anyone and wasn't affiliated with anything, and I was going in alone. That day gave me a lot of confidence and strength. My first thoughts were about being raped. After that day, my biggest fear became that I'd relapse while inside. I was arrested at 5 PM. Questioning, booking, transfer, etc. I'm not given a bunk assignment until 3 AM. I'm 6 feet 3 and 330 pounds, built but fat. More of an out of shape rattler. When I was assigned, I listed all of my medical problems. Diabetic, high BP, long list. The buzzer goes off, guard opens door, and then slams it shut. The sound, the ducking sound, the atmosphere, dump. The first words I hear, in a deep southern voice is, "Boy, you got a pretty mouth. Come sleep near daddy." I stopped. Frozen. The loudspeaker comes on and the guard yells, "Get to your bunk now." I go in the 30-man 2-tier tank and straight to my bunk. Never slept. Thinking how to protect myself. Fight to the death. Let them know that you'll bite and fight dirty. Never closed my eyes. Buzzer goes off. The day room is open. I see the person who yelled out at me. A 70-year-old man in a wheelchair, bald and barely alive. I see other old men who can hardly walk. I was in the hospital ward, infirmary, sick tank, etc. The old man couldn't stop laughing. "You should have seen your face, boy. They did that to every person that came in at night. Freaked them out. Turns out they were the coolest bunch of people I've ever been with. They gave me the rules of the tank. No fighting, no stealing, no ducking, etc. Second time wasn't as nice. I was thrown into a zoo. Spit at 20 times on my way to the bunk assignment. When one hit me directly in the mouth, I went berserk and fought. Got my ass kicked nicely. Never got spat at again. I was arrested while trying to schedule a diversion class I had missed. Missing the class violated a plea bargain stemming from a DUI I had gotten months before. I was immediately taken to processing. This was a Friday about noon. Unfortunately, the court was full for the day, so I didn't get to see a judge until the following Monday. I was put in a group cell with about 30 people. At first I tried to keep a low profile. I grabbed a book off a shelf and began to read. It was some silly romance novel, but it was all that was available. Then, some gangbanger saw me reading. He took my book and started yelling, "Look at Mr. Smarty Pants, reading books over here. He thinks he's too good for us." I was scared dumpless. I wanted no part of a jail fight. I just wanted to read and get through the weekend. Luckily, a guy who was often in jail, but a really cool dude, came and put the banger in his place. Gave me the book back and asked, "You know how to write too? Can you help me write a letter to my girl?" I proceeded to help write letters for 5 to 6 different cellmates. It was surreal. I became a protected guy, all because I helped some bad dudes communicate with the outside world. The letters I wrote were amazing. One guy had me tell his GFs how much he wanted to lick her ass. Seriously. One guy had a newborn at home. He was out buying formula when he was picked up for a parole violation. His household had no phone, so his fiancée had no idea what happened to him or their car for 3 days. He cried when we were writing the letter. I was humbled by the experience. I got sentenced to 10 days for missing the class and got out in 5 total. I ended up getting high fives and hugs from some of my cellmates as I was released. All in all, it was a positive experience, all things considered. Edit, added some words. I was arrested at Mardi Gras 1 year for battery on an officer with injury. Oops. Up until this point, and since then, I've been pretty much straight as a board. I think I've had a whopping 2 speeding tickets and 1 parking ticket in my life. I'm early 40s. Got hauled into the New Orleans jail. Freaked out of my mind. Here I am, a tubby white geek. Kept to myself in the booking area. Finally got to my cell well into the evening. They hauled another inmate out of the cell to make room for me, so I've instantly made at least 1 friend. Tried my damnedest to sleep, but I'm a snorer. So, didn't really sleep, didn't want to wake up the other guy in the cell. Spent the day talking to the guy, he was in on drugs. We talked about our life experiences. I got out on bail. Fast forward a few months, and I've plead guilty to a lesser charge of battery on an officer and get sentenced to 17 days. Having spent one night in, I steel myself for 17 days of boredom. I'd researched a lot and had my wife send me a CISSP book to study while I was in. Since the lesser charge wasn't a felony, I was stuck in an open dorm with lots of other inmates. That was a trip. You feel like a new student walking into a full classroom. Where am I going to bunk? Who's already eyeballing me to screw with me? I chose a top bunk of a bunked. And an older, weathered guy said, "Hey, man, don't sleep up there." A big guy, like you should be on the first one. "Here's an open bunk right here," and pointed me towards an empty rack. I took it and was extremely on alert, trying not to jump out of my skin. Was this guy looking for someone to drop the soap in the shower, or was he just a decent guy? Turns out, it was the latter. We talked like adults. He helped me understand the routine. I gave him the extra food I got. I was barely able to eat most of the food there. He shared some of his extras. He'd give me his applesauce, for example. All in all, a decent guy. He was in for drugs and theft, as were a lot of the other inmates. And while I'm not proud of what I did, lem tell you, if you've gotta go to jail, being able to say that you're in for battery on an officer, pled down from battery on an officer with an injury, certainly doesn't hurt with the other inmates. On my first night in prison, I decided to beat up the first big guy I saw to show my dominance. I got my ass swapped to a tomato color. I became a daily punching bag of every new inmate until I left. I was also raped every Tuesday. Yeah, there's no happy ending here, bitches. This ain't a fairy tale. Do the right thing. Subscribe, like and comment to avoid prison for the rest of your life. Be smart, be tough and subscribe now.